On this edition of Truck Pros, we take this 2008 Toyota Tundra and top it off with a Century hydraulic cap, while the suspension gets a ReadyLift raise. Welcome back to Truck Pros, coming to you from Illusions Custom Rods in Bristol, Tennessee. Well, we're ready to start another project right now. We've got in this brand new 2008 Toyota Tundra, and we want to put a lift kit on it. Now, who could do that better than the people from ReadyLift Suspension? So we've called in Brian right here, who's their research and development manager. What'd you bring us today?
Well, I brought us the 3-inch front and 1-inch rear lift and leveling kit for the new 2007-2008 Toyota Tundra.
All right, we're going to put it in the air?
Yes, we are.
How big a lift are we going to give this?
We're going to go 3 inches in the front and 1 inch in the rear.
Okay, and we have a special kit to do that?
We sure do. This is our brand new 3-inch front, 1-inch rear kit.
That's all there is to it. All comes in one box.
All in one box. Everything encased in foam, so nothing shifts around during shipping. You've got your front end 3-inch spacer for the top of the strut. This basically simply bolts onto the top of the strut to give it a amount of lift without compressing the spring. Then you've got your 1-inch block and U-bolts. They all come nicely packed. And also your differential drop that's also located inside. After removing the tire, what you want to do next is to unbolt the sway bar end link. Next step is to remove the skid plate. It's going to have 3 10mm bolts and 5 12mm bolts. And the skid plate will come right off. Next, what you want to do is you want to loosen the lower control arm bolts, and that'll allow the lower control arm to pivot when you're going to remove the strut. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to mark the alignment cam to the frame, so after you loosen it and retighten the bolt up again, it's back in the same spot so that your alignment's not too far off. After loosening the two 24mm alignment cams, you're going to remove these two 22mm lower ball joint bolts. Careful, as you remove the bolt, the lower control arm is loose and it will just swing down. Next, what you want to do is lower the truck down so you can access the 4 14mm upper strut mounting nuts, and from there you'll remove the strut. Now we've moved over to the vise here so we can put the strut in and mount it so we can mount our kit. Now if you look at the top of the strut, you got that little stamping on here that says out. This faces towards the outside of the strut, as these are mounted in a certain position. These are not symmetrical, so this strut only mounts one way into the vehicle. Now you'll take your ReadyLift SST kit, SST strut extension, and if you notice, it's also marked with the line that's going to match up with the out. You'll just slide on right over. You'll take your factory mounting nuts. You're going to place them in. Then you'll take your 14mm and you'll tighten them back down. Now when you're installing this, just remember to line up the markings I was showing you before with the outside of the coil tower. Be sure to keep the nuts just a little bit loose so that you can move the strut back and forth. Next step here is we're going to be reinstalling the lower strut mounting bolt. If you remember, we left the top nuts a little bit loose, so you can move the strut around to get the bolt right in. Next, what we're going to do here is we're going to compress the suspension so that we can connect the lower ball joint back to the knuckle. Now we've lowered the truck down so that we can use a floor jack to compress the suspension so that we can install the two 22mm lower ball joint bolts. So what you'll want to do is, while you've got the suspension compressed, you'll go ahead and install the lower sway bar end link bolt. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten up the 4 14mm upper strut mounting nuts. And remember earlier when we made those markings on the alignment cams, well, this is where it comes in handy. We're going to go ahead and slightly snug up the alignment cam bolts so that we can set the vehicle on the ground, put the wheel on, and then you can fully tighten them. Now we're ready to install the differential drop. So we're going to take the factory washer, install it on the new bolt, get the bolt started, install the 1-inch differential drop, line it up, then we're also going to install the mounting nuts. It's a little tricky but you can't see where you're putting them. Now that we've installed the differential mount, we're going to need to install the skid plate spacer so that we can clear these the drop mounts. And you don't want to tighten these down all the way because you have a total of 3 to install. And the front 2 mounting bolts, you don't need to space the skid plate down.
Okay, Brian, we're all done with the skid plate. Does that finish the front?
Up until we install the new wheels and tires, we may need to trim the skid plate just to create turning clearance.
Yeah, we could. We'll take a break right now. When we return, we'll do the back.
Welcome back to Truck Pros, and we're ready to install the rear lift kit. First thing we're going to do is remove the wheel. Now that the wheel's off, we need to remove the U-bolts. One thing you want to make sure is that the axle is supported, so that when you unbolt it, it just doesn't drop underneath you. Going to remove the mounting plate and the U-bolts. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to raise the leaf spring up off the axle pad. You can use a floor jack, but we're going to use a porta power. Set the block in and go and lower the leaf spring. Now when you lower it back down, make sure you line up the alignment pin on the leaf spring with the alignment hole on the block. Now go and get the nut and washer started, and then from there you can align the top of the U-bolts with the alignment plate on the top of the leaf spring. Help me out here. Now that we tightened down the U-bolts, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the wheel.
And that will conclude the installation of both the front and rear of our lift kit on this beautiful new Toyota Tundra. We'll put some big tires and wheels on it in another edition of Truck Pros, but if you'd like information from ReadyLift, we'll put up the website at the end of the program.